So we're gonna do point C now. So there's lots going on here. And if you don't know anything, this is kind of helping us review lots of little things. So that's why I kind of want us to do this today. All right, so point C, if I think about this midpoint formula they've got up here, I can use it. And I'm going to demonstrate using it, the formula, and then we're just going to say, wouldn't it have been easier if I just averaged the two? So we're kind of going to go through this whole process again, just so you're kind of seeing it from several different ways, okay? Let's first graph these points. If I graph the point 3, 6, that means x is 3. Well, here's 3, right? But I don't really want to point there. I'm just finding it on the number line. So I put a little dot there. That's x is 3. And then the y that goes with it is 6. So if I'm sitting at x equals 3, it's a positive 6, so I'm going to count up to the 6 on the number line. That's the y-axis. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So my point is really right here. I want to make it extra big just because this thing smears, and so I'm trying to even out it's on that little hash, where those lines cross right there. There is not a point right here. This is not a point. That was just me counting, and so I'm going to make the real point big, okay?
You're going to make it a different color.
I could. It's just, moving back and forth takes a lot of time on this. I could have called 3 x1 and 6 y1 because that's the first point listed, right? So I could say I'll write it up here. My x1 is 3 and my y1 is 6. I'm just going to list them up here so we can use them in the formula and you can clearly see where I'm getting them, okay? Now on the second point, I'm going to graph it in blue just so you can tell the difference in the 2 points. Okay, this tells me that my x2, my x of my second point, is all that means, is 7. And the y of my second point is 2, right? If I want to graph it, that means that I'm going to go out on the x number line, the x-axis, and I'm going to find 7. I'll put a little blue dot close to it. Sometimes when I put it, it puts it wherever the iPad grabs it, not exactly right on. And then I'm supposed to go to a y of 2. So I'm looking at the y number line. Isn't 2 on the number line right here? So here's what I'm kind of doing. I'm going, if x is 7 and y is 2, those would cross right there, wouldn't it? You can even, if you have trouble plotting points, you can even go up like I did here. There's the 7. Here's the 2. Okay, that's where they would cross. There's where the point is, okay? So there's my other endpoint. So I'm going to connect them with a black line. Now, what's the midpoint? Is it going to be as easy to count it here? Is it easy to count? You think so? And that one actually is not too bad because you can kind of count diagonally, right? Is that what you're thinking? You could count diagonally here. Is that what you're thinking too?
Yeah, and I know what it is.
Okay, tell me what you think it is.
It is 5, x5, y4.
Okay, so let me write that down. This is. You could, if you kind of counted across the diagonals here and here, you could get to it, but most lines are not like that. That's not, sometimes you can do that. This is just an accident, okay? This was an accident that you could see it that easily. Because a lot of times they're like in between decimals and stuff, and it's not so easy to do. If I want to find it, though, I could use the formula. I'm just going to demonstrate using the formula. I'm going to put x of the midpoint. I'm going to put a little m here just to remind you we're finding the x of the midpoint. And it tells me that I'm supposed to take x1, and I had written that down. That's 3, isn't it? And I'm supposed to take x2 and add it to the x1. Well, x2 was 7. I wrote it over here. I could have labeled it over here too. x2, y2. And I just wrote it over here. Okay, so the second x was 7. And I'm supposed to divide by 2. On top of the fraction, what's 3 plus 7? 10. What's 10 divided by 2? 5. Okay, so far Chester's right? He's got the first part right. And you said this was a 4 and it didn't pick up. Okay, there we go. All right, so 5. Now let's try the y's. The y of the midpoint, we're supposed to add, if you look at the formula here, y1 plus y2. Well, y1 was 6, and y2 was 2. 6 plus 2 over 2. What's 6 plus 2? 8 over 2 is 4. Try that again. There we go. So Chester was right. You could count it diagonally on this one, but that's not ever really a safe way to do it unless it's a real easy one like this, and it's easy to see. I wouldn't do it very often. I would be afraid to do it, honestly, just because usually it's not quite that easy. All right, so my midpoint, my x value of my midpoint was 5, and my y value of my midpoint was this 4 we found here. Bless you. That's where the midpoint is. Just keep hitting it. Maybe it'll stay on. Now, I could have done that a whole lot easier. I could have said, oh, I'm just going to average my two x values. Well, my two x values were 3 and 7. 3 plus 7 is 10. 10 divided by 2, average those two numbers would be 5, wouldn't it? And for the y's that I had, remember I had this y of 6 right here and this y of 2. So if I want to average 6 and 2, I add them together and divide by 2. What's 6 plus 2? 8 divided by 2 is 4. That's how you could get it. So when it comes to finding midpoints, sometimes you can count it. You can always use the formula, or you could always just average the x and the y if you don't want to have to go through the process of labeling all this stuff. Some people hate writing stuff down. They hate labeling x1, y1, x2, y2. And then they hate writing the formula here. Plus they have trouble remembering the formula. So if you can remember that midpoint just means the middle of the 2 points, then you can just average those. Let's try to do another one faster, okay? So for D, the points are 2, 8. That means x is 2. So here's my 2. And I'm supposed to go up until I get to the y is 8 on the number line. Well, here it is right here. So if you go over, isn't that point going to be right here? You go from the 2 up until you get to the 8 on the y. Is everybody, how's the graphing coordinates going? Everybody okay? Okay, good. Okay. So now on the second point, I'll do that in green or something. We have negative 6, 4. So negative 6, x is, where's your paper?
I don't have one.
You're supposed to have one, but if you don't have one, I have a few extra copies, so if you've lost yours, come get one, but try to keep up in the future with it, okay? So negative 6, 4. X is negative 6. Here's my x-axis. Here's negative 6 on the x number line, or the x-axis. And I'm supposed to go to y is 4. That's a positive 4, and the positive numbers on the y number line up and down, the positive numbers are up, aren't they? So you go up to 4. That's right here. So what I want to do is find the middle of that segment. Now, like I said, some of these are easier than others. You could count this one, but I'm not even going to try because you're cutting across so many different lines there. And sometimes you can count, the diagonals, but that's only if you really there's something called slope we're going to talk about. You can really only count the diagonals easily if you've got a slope of like 1 or something. Okay. So now, if I want to find these, here's the points. Maybe I write them like this so I can see them a little better. Okay. If I want to find the midpoint, let's try doing it instead of using the... That's a 6. Well, best you can do sometimes with a stylus on these things. Okay, so if I'm supposed to find the x of the midpoint, if I average the x's, couldn't I just say 2 plus negative 6? If I have $2 and I want to buy something that costs $6, that's kind of like I have 2 in my pocket, something costs 6. How much short am I? $4, so that's a negative 4, right? $4 short would be a negative 4. But I have to average these, so when I average two numbers, what do? What do I divide by?
Negative 4.
Yeah, I divide by 2 because there were two numbers. Negative 4 divided by 2, a negative divided by positive is a negative, so it's a negative 2, okay? So now we know what x we got. On our y's, we're supposed to add those together. Here's our y values right here. What's 8 plus 4?
4.
And when you divide by 2, what is it?
6.
6. 12 divided by 2 is 6, right? So there's our midpoint right there. And we didn't have to label x1, y1, x2, y2. So if we graph it, let me graph it in red. So we're supposed to go to -2 on the x number line, or the x-axis. That's like about right in here, right? And if I go up to the 6, that's a +6. So on the y number line, that's up. Oh, it's going to be about right here. There's my midpoint. So you can count it if you can, which a lot of times you can't, most times you can't. You can just average the x's and average the y's to get it, or you can use the formula.